My master's is I'm doing a master's of law. Maybe I should have started with this at the beginning, but I'm doing a master's of laws or an LLM in energy transition. It's a long word, but long story short, it's the low carbon just transition, but it's a master's of law in the energy transition. And everything, like from my leadership examples, the first two, the networking examples, it was speaking to just transition, even like how I was tying it back to Chevening, and we're going to go to that. There is a rationale to each of the essays, and so then you have to know what's the rationale, or like what's the Chevening Secretariat rationale, even as they ask you to give this example. It's not just anything random to just eliminate or something like that. There's thinking and thought behind it, and it's important to like know that. So it's only one example that you're required to give for this particular application. They say describe a time when you demonstrated leadership. In your answer, please demonstrate the following. So you're just giving one example. So how would I structure it? Hi guys, welcome to Thriving Nuggets YouTube channel. It's been a hot minute since we uploaded on this channel. The last time we were uploading was on I think Chevening interview tips, or like, no, should I pursue a master's or something like that. Please catch up on those two videos if they're of relevance to you. But I'm here because how many days ago? 5 days ago, I'm shooting this on the 10th of August. So on the 5th of August, the Chevening applications for 2025-2026 were opened. The application was opened. The applications were open. The application period was open. Oh, yeah. And I thought to come here and share selfishly, so that when I get any DMs or LinkedIn, DMs on Instagram, putting my Instagram here, or like on LinkedIn, then I can just point people to this video, because there is no different advice I'm going to be giving. It's typically the same advice. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there on tips on how to do well in your application, in your leadership essays and whatever essays. There's so much information, but I do know this year the application requirements have been updated a little bit, so be keen about that. So like the work experience that is being counted is after you graduate, and you should have graduated after October, no, before October 2023, or yeah, before October 2023. So yeah, just be keen about that. And then the leadership essay is sort of broken down into questions, and this time around they're asking for only one example, so 300 words also. So there are a lot of updates. So I thought, based on those updates, I could create a YouTube video based on how I will approach it. And honestly, I don't think the tips will be very significantly different, but I think the additional thing will be how to select the example that goes to the leadership or the networking, and how to like tailor that, and what I think would be important, and maybe other tips that I didn't hear as much or at all when I was preparing for my own application. But otherwise, there's so many YouTube videos out there. Please make them your friend. Make the Chevening website your friend. And that said, all views expressed here are my own views. They don't represent those views of the FCDO, the Chevening Secretariat. These are like my own views. If I will be asked what's the only tip, and you can only give one tip to a Chevening applicant, what is that one tip you would give? I think the one tip that I would definitely give is that look at, they're now calling them supporting statements, but look at the supporting statements or the essays. Don't look at them as, oh, I need to submit 4 supporting statements, or I need to submit 4 essays. Think about it as one essay that has been divided into several parts. I think that keeps you grounded, and that also makes sure that your examples and the different parts of the essay speak to each other, and they're speaking to one particular theme, and you can tell this is one person. And so there is no divergence. I read your leadership examples and your networking example, then I read what you want to go and study, and there's no connection. And I say this because I noticed something, like when I looked at our current cohort 2024-2025, I noticed one particular thing, that most of the people, everyone, if not, yeah, I think almost everyone, actually I will dare say everyone, was doing something in that field that they are going to master in, or they were doing something connected to that, and they were able to show that. There are exemptions where people were not doing something related to that field, but there was a connection. Even people who are pivoting from one subject area to another subject area, like when you look at the area, you will find, for instance, like someone is working in government in a different ministries, pivoting to another area of the law, but you could tell in the career plan, it makes sense when they say they will go back and do this, because it makes sense with how their trajectory has been. So I would say that's one of the most important things, even as you think about choosing your leadership examples, choosing your leadership example or choosing your networking example in this case, and choosing the course you're going to study and highlighting your career plan. And we'll go into each essay in each video. So for this one, it's leadership, but I think this is a general tip that I will give anyone for any of the essays. So that's number one. Number two, another general tip is that this application window is quite short. It's like 2 months, and if you have not reached out to people who you would like to review your essays, I would say please do. And I would actually encourage you to reach out to people who have already like finished their master's, so like the 2022-2023 applicants, 2023-2024. So there's a recency there, but also like they're not currently doing their master's. Some may be still very busy. I think that will be an advice that I will give you, so that then you're also able to write them early and give your reviewers ample time to be able to review. And as you do that, because this time around you're required to give only one example, I would still recommend for you to write 3 examples in your drafts. This is because when you go to the interview period, you may be required to give other examples that are not necessarily in your application. They will show diverse range to you, like it's not just this one example that you have. So that helps you even as you go to the interview stage. But at the same time, your reviewer may be able to let you know, I think that this that you've put as number 3 or number 2 should be the first example. And I saw it like last year when I was reviewing people's applications. You'll find someone putting a very strong example as the 3rd example. So it's good to have another eye, so that even as you select your example, it's really like you have someone else to look at it and say, I think that the one that you want to exclude should be the one that you actually write as an example. So I think that will be important. So let's go to how do you select what example will go to that application. And it's because now you don't have the luxury of like 3 examples. So for me, I think my advice is based on what was my very first example, because my first example was what I would call the strongest. Honestly, I think that if I would be applying this year, I would have taken my first leadership example, and then I would have taken my second networking example that I gave. And so I'm going to give examples of both. I'm going to read some excerpts of it so that then you see why I will choose that. The first thing I think when you're selecting the leadership example that you will put there, I think number 1 should be think about recency. So right now they're asking you have to have had 2 years experience after you have graduated. And so think about a leadership example that is within that period. And that as much as possible, unless you're pivoting, then that may be a bit different, but as much as possible, let it be an example that aligns with the course of study you're going to do. It doesn't mean that it means you've solved already the problems that you want to solve, because the reason why, and we'll get to the study in the UK, the reason why you're coming to study in the UK is because you've been in this field, you've seen the problems in this field, you already have this set of skills and experiences, but there's a career plan, there's a place you want to go, so you need the study in the UK. You need to come and study in the UK to fill that gap so that you can accomplish this career plan. So, and that's why I say they are connected, because Chevening is looking for a leader, so they want to see that you have the ability to influence people, you have the ability to lead people, and you have the ability, if they come and put you in this particular space, you're going to take initiative, you're going to be a leader, you're going to be an influencer while you're in the UK, but even after you leave the UK. And then at the same time, they also want to see that you have an ability to network and to build relationships. So when they place you in the UK, you'll have so many connections, there's so many networks that you make. And when I get that, the time, and when I do sit down and share my full Chevening experience, maybe next year, but I'm going to, there's so many networks and relationships you build from your school, from the Cheveners, from industry events that happen in Europe and in the UK. There's so much. So they want to make sure that if you're placed in this particular scenario, you're able to take advantage and to build relationships. And then, so you're a leader, you're an influencer, you're building relationships. You've seen the gap. You need to study in the UK to fill this gap. So that's why the third essay really needs to show that. But in this new year, then they add the priorities, and we're going to get to that when I do that video. And then now to the career plan. So there is a rationale to each of the essays, and so then you have to know what's the rationale, or like what's the Chevening Secretariat rationale, even as they ask you to give this example. It's not just anything random to just eliminate or something like that. There's thinking and thought behind it, and it's important to know that. So the recency, that's where I was. The recency part, it's really important. So like for instance, my leadership example. So my theme throughout. So my master's is, I'm doing a master's of law. Maybe I should have started with this at the beginning, but I'm doing a Master's of Laws or an LLM in energy transition. It's a long word, but long story short, it's the low carbon just transition, but it's a Master's of Law in the energy transition. And everything, like from my leadership examples, the first two, the networking examples, it was speaking to just transition, even like how I was tying it back to Chevening, and we're going to go to that. There was the underlying thing was that this goes back it goes back to this underlying theme of energy transition. Right now, there are themes already that have been provided. So think about if it's climate resilience, if it's development, if it is protection against conflict, something like that. I think those are the three main. But think about it under that broader thing. What's the underlying thing that you go back to, so that then there's consistency. So my first example was actually on energy transition. And so that is how I chose that example. So number one, in terms of choosing, and I'm looking down because I have some short notes, so don't wonder what's happening over here. I have some short notes, and then also have my computer here to read the examples. And also to look at the guidelines that the Chevening has given for this year. So there's recency. I think, yeah, that's it. So how do you sort of, and this time round, so I want to look at my particular example. How many words did I give? So my word count was 138 words, right? And then my conclusion was 50 words, so that's 188. Let's say 200 words. So 100 words could add to the other two questions you ask. So it's only one example that you're required to give for this particular application. They say describe a time when you demonstrated leadership. In your answer, please demonstrate the following. So you're just giving one example. So how would I structure it? So I would use the first line to set the context, because they actually asking you what was the context or the challenge. So you have to give a context. So you just don't say, oh, in our area there was this problem. Give a context. So how do you paint a context? You explain what year it was. You explain what position, not position or where you're working or something like that. So for me, it was in 2022, I was selected the Just Energy Transition Initiative representative at XXX, a Pan-African NGO that empowers communities to advocate for environmental and climate justice. So that means that someone has already painted a picture where you're situated, because the person is not going to be knowing the place. You may mention, oh, I was working at, if you're Kenyan, Nation Media Group. This is being reviewed by someone in London, the readers, the reader committee, so they are there. Maybe someone may not have the context of your country and all that. So the first line just set the context, they understand, okay, so here you've given understanding, but not so many words to now belabor on that. I literally, let me see how many words I used there. I looked, it was Yeah, 28 words. So you've set the context. Then I jumped into the challenge. So I said I had noticed that there was inadequate community participation when it comes to policy influencing work, and communities like driving that or something like that. So that's the second part of it. So you're setting what's the problem that you saw, like what's the gap that you saw, and that's why it's not about the positions. It's not about you having started this big organization. If well and good if you have done that, congratulations, but do not limit yourself and say, oh, I can't apply, I can't do this because then I do not have all these, like how do I put it, I do not have all these credentials and all that. It's just showing that you are a person who takes leadership. It's not about the positions, it's not about that. And if it was about positions, for instance, and this also goes back to the recency example, like for me, I have predominantly held leadership positions since primary school, but it wouldn't have made sense for me to talk about, oh, being a head girl in primary school or in high school or something like that. It wouldn't have made sense because I need to show recency. I need to show that I'm still taking initiative in my field, because that is what the Chevening application is all about. But also at the same time, I shouldn't come on. I remember one of my first drafts. I look at my first drafts and I normally laugh. One of my first drafts, I realized that I had sort of what is it called? I had sort of just highlighted things that I was tasked to do. It's not things that you're tasked to do, it's things that you do outside of your work, or like it's an initiative. You see a problem at work and then you offer a solution. And as you offer a solution, you're not just supporting, you're taking initiative, you're leading it. And that brings me to the second part. So you've set the context. This was working, or this is what the place that I'm in, this is where I'm going to make the impact. Set the context. Let us know what that is. And then you go to the second part where you're saying this is the challenge that was faced. Then in the third example, then because they're saying in the first question they're asking you what was the context or the challenge you faced. Then what specific actions did you take as a leader? So as a leader, what action? So what's most important in this third part is for you to demonstrate leadership. And how do you demonstrate it? By the verbs you use. So do not say I supported, it's I led, I took the initiative, I spearheaded, it's I did this, I did that. So don't say we came together and we did and we. That we won't give you an award-winning, let me say that, leadership example. So the verb that you use is really important. And yeah, so you say you did this, and then after that, after you say all the things that you did, then say as a result or consequently, what was the outcome? Because they say the next part, the third part of the question, they're saying what was the outcome and what did you learn? So what was the outcome? Quantify the outcome in terms of number or quality. So for me, it would be, my examples were more from a policy angle. This and this policy or our policy recommendations were incorporated into this law. That's the outcome. In my last example, which was not related to my course of study because we were giving 3 examples then. So my last question was on numbers. So I was talking actually about this particular YouTube channel, and I talked about the amount of views I have gotten, like cumulatively across all my law school videos. So and then I also talked about being featured in a column in the Nation newspaper. So that quantifies like the outcome and the result, kind of, right? And actually, when I talked about the Nation newspaper, I had to explain it and say maybe a renowned media outlet in Kenya or something like that. Actually, I have the example here. I don't know why I'm trying to rely on my memory. Yeah, a nationwide, a renowned newspaper in Kenya with nationwide circulation, something like that. So someone understands what you're really talking about. Now, the additional things that have come is like, what did you learn? So think about any challenge that you faced, but even any triumph that you faced, and think about what your learning was. And this comes really handy because you may be asked in your interview also, like, what was the challenge? And this is to help you, it's to help them see, are you a reflective leader? Do you reflect on your on how you have done, and use those learnings to do better, or use those learnings to apply them elsewhere so that your impact continues to grow. So think about what you learned. Think about, like, for instance, for me, one thing that I learned, if I would give that, because for example, I didn't go to, my learnings, but if I would think about the learnings that I learned, I think one of the things that I learned is that how important it is, as one of the processes of engaging communities, to break down the law in a way that they truly understand, and the structure that you do it and something like that. I'm thinking of these lessons like on the go, but it's thinking reflectively, like, what did you learn? And your learning then has to connect with the last part of the question, where they're saying, how has this experience shaped your approach to leadership? Did it make you a more inclusive leader? Did it make you a more empathetic leader? Did it make you so what kind of leader did it make you? And don't just say, this experience made me an empathetic leader, and leave it at that. Say that this whatever scenario made me an empathetic leader because show, do not tell. So say, as a result of this, I was able to be an empathetic leader, and this has shaped in the way I view, like, the people I'm leading in that way, or this made me become a more assertive leader, or like, what quality did this particular experience bring out in you? And I would say this, it's not part of the 4 questions, but I would say leave a bit of words to go back to the Chevening application and tie it to the leadership, because at the end of the day, you want to demonstrate that the Chevening Scholarship is a very central piece to your story. And that's why you're applying to Chevening. You're saying, I need the Chevening application, I need the Chevening Scholarship, not just so that you pay my fees and you pay my stipend and you pay my flights, coming and going, not because of that, but so that because there's more, and and it shows that you understand what it means to get the Chevening Scholarship. So for leadership, I would say, avoid saying, oh, you want to go to join a network of I don't know how many people I want to do. Think about your specific journey and go back to your theme. So for me, I'll read my conclusion. I said, the Chevening Scholarship will enable me to hone my influencing skills by giving me an opportunity to engage with outstanding influencers worldwide by attending Chevening events such as the Chevening Conference. As such, I will be equipped to influence community-centered energy transition policies in Kenya. So I'm still going back. By the time you're reading my leadership, you can tell. Like, when you get to my career plan, you won't be shocked at the things you will see. When you get to the course I'm choosing, you won't get shocked. It's telling one single story. You don't have to write this. You don't have to think about what leadership, like for instance, the Chevening Scholarship brings so many leaders together. What does that do to you as a leader? How will that grow your leadership skills? Is it the connections that you make? Is it learning from people's journeys and that shaping how you view leadership and things like that? Is it taking advantage of the Chevening events? Mention what events. So be very tight back to the Chevening Scholarship. Because of the limited word count, please don't start saying leadership means this. We will know what leadership means to you, even as you talk about what you learned and how this shaped your leadership. We will know, even as you talk about your leadership example, and we'll tell this is an influencer in the climate space, this is an influencer in the education space, things like that. So I'm looking at my points to see if there's something that I have missed. No, I've not missed anything. I think those would be, I think if you do that, you will definitely have an application that takes you to the interview stage, God willing. Yeah, it's a strong, let me not say, oh, if you do this and then you don't do anyway, I mean, like, it will be a strong application, let me say that. Let me not be a politician. It will be a strong application. And one last thing is that it's only a 2-month window. It's a shorter window than has been there before. So I would say plan. Have a plan of, like, when do you want to submit? A day to. Don't say on the day off, because the portal sometimes crashes. On the day to, work backward. When do I need my first review? Second, do I want my essay reviewed thrice? work backward and then stick to that plan, so that then you have a reflective. You need to reflect a lot. You need to step back from what you write, come back to it, and you may not do it on the last minute. There are people who did that. There are people who actually, we are in the same school right now, and that's what they do well and good. But if you have ample time, I would say do that, reflect on that, do the 3 examples, ask someone to say which one do you think this is a stronger one. They may have an opinion, but also at the end of the day, trust your judgment. There were some things I was given reviews, and in my judgment I was like, I'm not sure, so I didn't incorporate that. So also trust your own judgment. Don't say, because if you are agreeing to everyone, if you like have several reviewers, you may get confused. Ultimately, do trust your judgment, but don't be ignorant when you're given like very consistent advice or like consistent feedback throughout. Also be humble to learn. It really is helpful. Ultimately, I would say enjoy this process of writing the essay. Enjoy it, because it really helps you reflect. Let me tell you, up to date, there are some things that I wrote on my Chevening essays that I use for other applications. Well, I took it to the application, but one of the things that the Chevening application process did to me, it made me very reflective of my career. And there was a certainty, not 100% certainty, because with this year, while in the UK, some things have evolved and shifted for me, but there was a certain direction that it sort of gave me, and a clarity even in how I think about my medium-term and long-term goals. So I will definitely say enjoy this process. Yeah, so that's it for this video. I'll see you on the next video where I share about the relationship building. Hopefully I get to edit like on time, and so you're getting it sequentially, or like not in to, what is it called, like it's not so much time far apart, so you can use those videos. Yeah, and feel free to follow me on Instagram. I share more about my day-to-day or real-time, not 100% real-time, but I share about my experience and my day-to-day on Instagram, so you can follow me on Instagram. The handle is here. And yeah, and you can email me. I have to say though, am I open to reviewing applications? I am, but not in the month of August, because I'm prioritizing my master's degree right now. But I could, if you ask, in mid-September. I really could. Maybe you have a full-on draft. I could. But yeah, let me just leave it at that and not make any promises. But I hope these tips are going to be of help to you. That's it for this week's video, and until the next video,